Call the meeting to order, please. And first of all, I want to welcome all of you to our regularly scheduled committee meeting night here at the Town Council. We're going to first have a special meeting to deal with one item, and then our committees that will meet tonight are our Finance Committee, our Utilities Committee, the Administrative Committee, and the Public Works Committee. Last time that we met, I made the announcement to those of you who were here then, and we are still in the discovery phase, if you will, relative to the two proposals that the town has received for the purpose of the old ice house building behind us here in our park. So we're still in the fact-finding phase of that. We're doing a market assessment study. I think I mentioned that the last time we were together as well. And as such, we're going to, when we finish that phase, part of what we'll discuss here tonight, we will then formally set aside a public hearing on this matter. We're required to do it by statute, and we will follow that. But so far as the night is concerned, we will not be having a public hearing on the sale of this building. But I'm glad you're here to listen to the information that has been gathered and as it will be discussed among the council members, because I'm sure there are some differences of opinion relative to what we might do going forward. So thank you for coming, but I just wanted to get that out of the way before we got too deep into our agenda. So Anne-Marie, if you would please review the resolution for the special meeting.
I will, Mayor. Thank you. The council is aware that last September and October, you all worked with Representative Steinberg, who I saw in the House. Thank you, Representative, for being with us. And Representative Steinberg was instrumental in helping us secure funding to widen and also overlay or repave Peanut Drive in conjunction with the Jimbo Jumbo's expansion. When the expansion started, it was learned rather quickly that the what we call Peanut Drive Extended was not built to the same standards as the original Peanut Drive. And Chief, can you help? We've got somebody peeking in the window. Can we make room? Excuse me. When the construction, all the truck traffic started, we quickly realized that Peanut Drive Extended, which was built when C.A. Perry left North Broad Street where the Walgreens is and moved out to the end of Peanut Drive Extended, that road needed to be upgraded also to the tune of another $120,000. And again, we called Representative Steinberg, and with assistance from the Board of Transportation member, Malcolm Fearing, we've been advised that additional funding can be secured, but a resolution is needed anytime a DOT project inside a city limit that exceeds a certain threshold of a dollar value. So the council is required to adopt the resolution. We've prepared that for you to consider tonight. And time is of the essence because we want to secure that money. The work will not be done until after the construction project is completed, which is estimated to be in July of 2016. But again, we want to get that money encumbered for this project. So we ask that you have this special meeting tonight and consider adopting the resolution. Okay,
thank you, ma'am. Council members, either of you have any questions of what Anne-Marie just explained relative to the additional funding needed to complete Peanut Drive next year? And if not, Chair would entertain a motion to send. Thank you. Motion and a second to execute the resolution and send it forward to DOT to support the upgrade of Peanut Drive. Any further questions or comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Okay, thank you very much. One thing I forgot to mention when I was making the announcement relative to tonight's meeting, I'm in a situation this evening where I'm going to have to leave at 6:45, and the reason being is that we have an industrial client in town tonight who is visiting through a lead that was picked up from NC East, which is now in part responsible for bringing industrial and business clients to Northeastern North Carolina. Van Rogerson, who's formerly with the Northeast Commission when it was back in our building back here, has this gentleman in town with him. He inspected the plant that was formerly, help me, George C. Moore, this afternoon. And so I invited him to join me for dinner. And so I will be passing the gavel down to Mayor Pro Tem Jimmy Stallings at 6:45. So if I get up and leave, it's not for lack of interest, believe me. Okay, first tonight we'll hear from our Finance Committee, and that's chaired by Councilman Dixon, please, sir.
We had two things on tonight. The first one is the Rural Center Disaster Resiliency through Leadership Development Training Program. And I'm going to call on Wynn Dale, the head of our chamber, and also wish you a happy birthday, Wynn.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for allowing me to be here tonight. I'm going to cover some information about this Leadership Disaster Resiliency Program, and Anne Marie can help fill in the blanks because she's been working with me in putting this together. I'd like to thank the council for letting me appear before you tonight. I'd like to also give a shout out to Councilman Biggs. He's the one that helped us out too and kind of turned us on to this potential disaster training program. But basically the Rural Center is offering disaster training at 3 sites in the coming spring of 2016. And they're looking for 3 sites, and there's an application process that is involved in applying to become one of these disaster training sites. And Councilman Biggs suggested that I speak with Anne Marie and we try to work out some way for the chamber to host this event, to put it on. So what we would actually be doing is working with the Rural Center. If we're approved, we're going to apply first, but if we were selected, we would look regionally for the attendees. We would handle all the speakers. The Rural Center would basically pay for all the speakers, the travel. They'd also pay for the meals, any kind of snacks, refreshments that go on through the order of the day. It's a 1-day program. We will be responsible for securing the location and handling the logistics, of course. If there were any speakers that were from out of town that needed motel rooms or something like that, we would help with those arrangements. But the chamber would like to do this, to put this on. We think it would be great training. It's been over 10 years since we had a hurricane issue like we did with Isabel. We've had some other severe weather incidents like the tornadoes last year, but we feel like it would be good training, good refresher. Of course, leadership training too regarding dealing with disasters for not just locals here in Edenton, but for the entire region. And basically, community leaders will be invited, public works people, fire, rescue, EMS, police, anyone interested or anyone that's involved in disaster recovery or disaster mitigation. So Anne Marie, does that pretty much cover what we needed? And
it is. I'll just add that the program is being funded by FEMA. And as an incentive to encourage local governments, it's targeted for municipalities under, I believe, 5,000 in population. But they, as an incentive, they will pay the host town $5,000. And that would be on top of the other expenses that they would pay for. And so Wynn has agreed, if the council will agree, that we would work out an agreement with the chamber where the town would remit that $5,000 to the chamber for their doing all of the legwork, all of the coordination. Wynn has written the proposal, which you have seen. I think he's done a fine job, and we are committed to putting together a meaningful and worthwhile training program. So we would like permission from the committee to go ahead and apply for the program. The deadline is August 31st. And then if we are successful, we would come back to you with an agreement that we would need to formally get approval for to work out compensating the chamber.
When, let me add also, the reason I kind of wanted the chamber to be able to do this is because it's not just for locals. One was hosted last year in Windsor, and there were people from all over the region that came. So, you know, hey, somebody bought some gas, somebody bought something before they left town, I'm sure. So more people we get here, the better we are. So that was the reason I thought maybe it was a good fit for the chamber.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And Wynn was incredible last year after the tornado disaster and helping to coordinate a lot of the relief effort. So he has great experience to offer in helping to plan and put on the workshop.
Anybody else got any questions? Just to let y'all know how this works, we have a committee system, and so because we don't normally have an audience like this, so the three people on this committee are, I'm on it, I'm the chairman, and Steve Biggs and Bob Quinn. So we make a recommendation to the full council. So what we'll do now is vote on whether we send it to the full council. If we do, then it'll be on the agenda for the next meeting, and we'll approve it. So anyway, I think I hear that we want to send it on, but I'll check with y'all. Yeah. Okay, we'll send it on. Thank you so much, Wynn.
Okay, thank you.
The second thing we have on tonight is the urgent care, the new urgent care up on Broad Street, building reuse grant budget amendment. And we had we got a grant for $18,020. I don't know what $20 is for. We just need to receipt that in, and Anne-Marie's going to do all the paperwork for us. So I think it's a no-brainer. Send that on the full council. Yeah. I don't know whether y'all need to debate that at all.
I know.
Okay.
I don't want to pay it.
So that's all we have on tonight.
Thank you, sir. Moving next to our Utilities Committee, chaired by Councilman Quinn, please, sir.
Thank you. We've actually got two things. One is electric retail rate reduction plan. We're fortunate to have Terry Berg here, President of Financial and Strategic Services with Booth & Associates, to explain this to us. We're fortunate that this is occurring due to the sale of the NCMPA's generating assets to Duke Progress. Anne-Marie, if you have any other further introduction to that, you're most welcome to do so.
I'll just say that we have enjoyed working with Terry and his staff, our staff. Been very impressed. This is a big undertaking. We want to make sure that our projections are accurate, and we've been very impressed with the professionalism and the expertise that Booth has brought to the process, and looking forward to the presentation tonight.
Thank you. Good evening. Wasn't quite expecting this crowd, but I'll try not to ignore you over there and try and make eye contact with everybody. As was mentioned, the impetus of this rate reduction, electric rate reduction, was the sale of the assets from the power agency selling the nuclear plants to Duke Power and Duke Progress. And that resulted in, as effective July 1, a rate reduction in power costs for the town. That power cost reduction for fiscal year 2015-16 for the town of Edenton is about a 16% decrease in power costs. What we wanted to look at was over the next several years what the impact was going to be. We wanted to look at what the impact was of the decrease, but also along with this, the Power Agency is looking at power increases of approximately 3%, going up to 4% over the next several years. So the next several years, while you received a 16% decrease in power costs for this 15-16 fiscal year, you're going to be looking at 3 to 4% increases going forward. What we didn't want to do is put in a rate reduction right now and then have the town electric department have to increase rates every year going forward. We also wanted to look at the current reserves of the electric department and where we thought they should be. So kind of look at this rate reduction, future rate increases, and then also where the current electric fund, where the reserves are and where they should be. Can everybody hear me all right? Okay. We looked at the reserves, and what we're talking about is reserves is to make sure the utility department, the electric department has enough cash on hand to pay their bills. And typically, what the utility looks at is having 45 days of cash as far as power bills and their O&M and maintenance and regular expenses. Plus, depending on the age of their system, have cash on hand for unexpected O&M. The system is fairly well depreciated, so what we did is looked at what is recommended for municipal utility, and as far as reserves based on the age of your system. And the typical amount of reserves for a system this age is 3% of the total plant value, which for this system amounts to about $300,000 is what you need in reserves, over and above the 45 days of purchase power cost expense and purchase power or O&M, other O&M expenses. Other things you have to look at is typical capital improvements. Make sure you have enough on hand to do the typical annual capital improvements that you do on your system. So we looked at several year average of where your capital improvements have been. And then the third thing we look at is debt service, or that's fourth or fifth. Total reserves that we recommend is about $2.3 million in reserves is what the electric department should have on hand to meet these different items. Also, we looked at, and I mentioned this already, one thing we did not want to do is put in a large rate decrease and then have to come along and increase rates right away again because the Power Agency is raising rates the next couple of years. Wanted to have part of the reserves is to cover unanticipated costs that may happen. Anne Marie just mentioned tornado. Typically, those are reimbursed by FEMA, but they may not be. You need some reserve on hand for unanticipated costs. Other funds are system improvements. Typically, the reserves are about 15 to 25% of operating expenses. As I mentioned, we're looking at about 2.3 is a realistic number for the town to have on hand in its electric department reserves. Typically, for a municipal utility, you have 45 to 90 days of cash available for a reserve amount. Currently, under your current rates, it provides about 56 days. Under what we're proposing, it'll give you about 68 days of reserves. The 56 days is based on the old purchase power rates, so that's a little bit of a swing. Overall, this shows you the income statement and what we're proposing, we looked at the fiscal year 15-16 with the rate, the budget, operating expenses, revenue, assuming rates, a rate decrease went into effect September 15th. The decrease in purchase power costs went into effect July 1. So we rebuilt the fiscal year budget based on a planned rate decrease, and then looked at reserves. Purchase power number in here, so we're looking at the purchase power increase that is going to happen in April 1 of 2017. So we want to make sure we at least cover in our budget here, in our proposed rates, we at least cover the purchase power increases that are going to be happening through April 1st, 2017, which really isn't that far out. So April 1 of 16, there's planned 3% increase, another 3% increase planned for April 1st, 2017. The target was for fiscal year 17-18 to have cash reserves, whoops, too many fat fingers, hit two buttons at the same time. To have cash reserves of approximately $2.3 million at the end of for fiscal year 2000, fiscal years 17-18. In order to achieve that, we're recommending an overall rate reduction averaging 9.4 or 9.39%. So we're proposing a rate reduction of 9.39%. We're not proposing any changes to lighting rates. They're fairly competitive where they are right now. We didn't see a need to change them. Load management switches, they were providing the right price signal. We didn't see a need to change those. For residential, we're proposing increasing the monthly facilities charge. The residential bill is currently made up of two pieces. It's a facilities charge of $8, which is supposed to cover some of the fixed cost. The actual fixed cost of the utility are close to $50 or $60 per month. So $8 is meant to cover some of the fixed cost, and then you have an energy rate of 12.9 cents that covers purchase power, but it's also covering a lot of the fixed cost. So the more kilowatt hours you use, you take, if you use 1,000 kilowatt hours, you take that 12.9 cents times 1,000 comes up to $129, plus $8, $137 is what your bill would be at 1,000 kilowatt hours. We're proposing actually increasing the fixed cost, increasing it from $8 to $10.45, because really the costs of operating the system have not gone down. So we're trying to recover more of the fixed costs, and I'll explain a little more detail why we're doing that. But decreasing the energy charges to 11.35 cents. Currently, there are about 3,300 customers on this rate. The average kilowatt hour usage is about 1,024. The average cost per kilowatt hour when you combine the $8 with the energy price is 13.68 cents. That's going to go down for the average consumer or customer down to 12.37 cents. So the average decrease a residential customer will see, this is the average, going to vary depending on your usage, is 9.58%. This shows you at different usage levels where you may fall. You'll see actually for the low use consumer of 50 or 100 kilowatt hours, you're going to see a slight increase. it looks big in percentages, but for 50 kilowatt hours, they're going to see a $1.68 increase. That's because the facilities charge went up by $2.45, but the energy went down. So the combination of the two resulted in an increase for this type of consumer. But it cost the city, on average, about $50 to $60 just to have the infrastructure there, to bill it, to meter it, to pay their debt service and those types of things. So, we felt, for a number of reasons, increasing the facilities charge from $8 to $10.45 is more than warranted. There's one of the local cooperatives in the area, their facilities charge is $22.50, so they're significantly higher than you are. But at 1,000 kilowatt hours, you'll see that it comes out to the average of 9.53, and as a higher use consumer, they'll see a larger decrease, percentage-wise. Again, some of the reasons we're recommending increasing the facilities charge, revenue stability. The more of your fixed cost the utility can collect in the fixed cost, the less weather sensitive it is. Right now, if you have a very warm winter and a very cold summer, the electric department, their revenues are going to fall short. They may not be able to meet their meet their obligations. So the higher you get the facilities charge, the more stable the revenue is for the electric department. Price signal, if you have your energy price at 12.9 cents and the average cost that the city is paying is 7.5 cents per kilowatt hour, you have about a 5-cent margin in there, which is really providing the wrong price signal. If somebody puts insulation in their home, they're reducing their kilowatt hour usage by about 12, and for every kilowatt hour they reduce it, you save 12.9 cents, but the city's only saving 7.5 cents. So you're kind of giving the wrong price signal. It's overvaluating the cost of insulation, those types of things. That goes along with energy efficiency. Same with distributed generation. For solar panels on the house, if you have a net metering or somebody puts a generator in it to offset the 12.9, the city's really only saving 7.5 cents. So it tries to get more stable, tries to get closer to the proper price signal. And also fairness. If you have a very low facilities charge, the high-use consumer is paying more than they should be because you have a lot of fixed costs that are built into the energy charge. So it's a matter of fairness also. Any questions? Public housing service. There's 4 meters in the public housing. You can see it's about 26 times the usage, kilowatt hour usage, because it's serving multifamilies. It's about 26 times what it is for the average residential. We're recommending that the facilities charge be increased from $18.50 to $24, energy going down from 12.29 to 11.64 cents per kilowatt hour. On average, it's 9.55% increase, or decrease. I'm so used to saying increase. Small general service, these are for small commercial customers below 50 kW. There's 717. When we looked at it, the average monthly consumption is 1,888. Again, we're proposing to increase the facilities charge. Whoa. Now I really get it. This one I need to fix. Sorry.
Do you need some help?
No. proposing increasing the facilities charge from $18.50 to $24 and reducing the energy charge. 12 point. The average reduction comes out for this class at 9.57%. For a small, like I said, this goes up to 50 kW. For a 10 kW small general service consumer, let's say it's 30% load factor, using 2,100 kilowatt hours, the reduction is about 9.96. As they use more, it's more of a decrease. A larger consumer that falls in this class, they're going to see percentage-wise a slightly higher decrease because the energy charge is where all the decrease is coming in. Large power service, these are for the larger commercial, above 50 kW, and industrial customers. Increasing the facilities charge from 78 to 97. We actually reduced the demand very slightly because most of the decrease that you're seeing from the power agency is energy related. Very little of it was demand related. So we showed a slight decrease in demand, but the majority of the decrease we're doing in the energy, passing through in the energy charge. Again, the average, there's 56 customers. The average is 52,800 kilowatt hours, so they're fairly large customers. It's about 9.6% decrease. And if you look at different load factor, the load factor is 250 kW is probably it's a
Glenn,
like
help,
food- a
what
food
kind
line.
of, a s-
Probably
food line, a
food
small,
line.
a larger commercial?
Yeah. And a one-shift operation would operate around 30% load factor, so we're looking at about 8.24. Food line, which typically operates at about 60% load factor because they're operating more hours, at least 2 shifts. They're going to see about a 10.24% decrease. Large power coincident peak service. There are two customers on this rate. Fairly large customers, you can see by their average kilowatt hour consumption, 78,000. These customers have agreed to either control their load or have a generator so that they get off during that hour where you're being billed from your power supplier for your demand. So they have agreed either voluntarily or through a generator to get off at the time of the system peak, or when you're being billed for your demand. The facilities charge is going up to $97. This is, if they do not get off, they pay $25.90, it was $26.30, for every kW demand that they have on peak. So there's a very large incentive for them to get off at the time of the system peak. For excess demand, that's demand, it's like an off-peak demand. You still need to recover your facilities, distribution facilities of the system. This piece up here is purchase power related, this part down here is more related to the system here. So that went down from 467 to 425, so that's their excess demand. Whatever their maximum demand is for the month, less what their coincident peak demand is, that's what you build the excess. And then the energy charge went from 6.8 cents down to 5.97 cents. Again, 9.6% decrease in this class of customers. There's 2 customers. Customer generation rider. This looks like, this consumer, these consumers received a large decrease, but they actually saw less of a credit. They're still going to pay. This is a customer that is generating power through solar panels or something like that. They're paying $3 a month for administrative charges for having to build this, keep track of the energy that goes back onto the city system. They were getting a credit of 4.87 cents per kilowatt hour. We've reduced that credit to 4.133 cents. This was the energy rate that the city was paying to the power agency. The rate that the city is now going to be paying its first year to the power agency is about 3.3 cents. We didn't want to take this customer made investments based on, getting a credit close to the 4 to 5 cent range. We didn't want to take it all the way down to 3.3 and take all his credit away. So we went halfway, and this is going to be increasing the next couple of years at 3 to 4% a year. So it looks like he received the largest percentage, but it actually went the other way of this customer, even though that percentage was.
Is that an average for the basic customer charge that you've seen for people who are using solar, $3?
Yeah. It should be a lot higher, but these are small units, and the reason it's been so small is to promote it, and not be called the nasty utility that's trying to not let me put my solar unit in. And 3 to 375 is what most utilities, Duke Progress, Duke Power, they're charging 375. So it's right in the ballpark of what, it's to promote the renewables and promote solar, and rather than standing in the way of it.
And do they also get the tax credits? Any tax credits?
Yes. Yes. But it's, as you'll see, you have 7 customers in the city, and the kilowatt hours that you're purchasing on average is 257, so it's a small amount of kilowatt hours. What we're proposing for an effective date is September 15th for this, and the numbers were based on, and the budgets that you saw were based on a September 15th, 2015 effective date. But that's, of course, up to the council. Any questions?
I would like for you to repeat, if you would, please, Terry, what the town of Edenton customer charge will be under the new proposed rate, and compare that with the other power service that exists in Chowan County. What was that? There was a pretty big difference in
What we're proposing is going from $8 to $10.45.
but the co-op is 20 bucks.
The co-op right now, Albemarle EMC, which is right down the road, their current facilities charge is $22.50.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to hear. And secondly, my question is, with 3% increase in the base cost of electricity going forward, this reduced rate of 9% will be gone in year 3.
Yes. Yes.
First quarter of year 4, something like that. We'll all be back paying the same thing.
The way we budget is we think it'll take you through fiscal year 17-18. And then the reserves will start dropping off.
Oh, okay.
And what we recommended, your current reserves are about 1.8 million. Our calculations showed that your reserve should be somewhere closer to 2.3 million. So starting in fiscal year 18-19, you're going to see your reserves are starting to fall off. So at that point in time, we expect that you're going to have to do something.
Why will the reserve start falling off at that time?
Because of the purchase power, you're going to see your purchase power costs going up. They're going up 3 to 4% a year. So your actual margins will actually start going down, or actually be negative. We only have assumed a 1% increase in operating expenses in this budget. So by fiscal year 18-19, you'll be down to about where your current reserves are, which we think is a little low. We think we should be in the $2.3 million range. But the main reason is purchase power costs are going, which is 85% of your cost, 80 to 85% of your cost are going up 3 or 4% a year. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I wish I could ask some intelligent questions, but I think it's a little bit over my head. However, we're very fortunate to be getting a rate decrease, and we appreciate the help that you've given us in getting to this level on your recommendation at 9.39. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bob, can I ask Terry a quick question?
Sure.
We've been following what our sister member municipalities are doing, and you know, it's really hard to compare Edenton's situation to another municipalities because load factors change, load factors are different, customer composition are different. But I did want to share that when we started this process, running the numbers in our head, I was really hoping that we would be able to reduce our rates by 10%. But I did not think that we would be able to offer 9.3% reduction and maintain that for several years. So I think that rate stability is important, and I was just curious if you're seeing that type of sort of package being discussed by other municipalities.
Yes, we are. And the municipals that we're working with, they're looking at 3, 4, 5-year state rate stabilization plans. There's 5 years is about the longest that we've looked at. People, of course, the first couple of years of that rate stabilization, there's some extra cash there, and some of the systems are using that to do maintenance that they've put off for years and years and years. This cash was short, it was tight. So there's several. 5 years is the most that we've seen so far. Some of them have passed. There's a couple of them that passed the whole thing on, and they're going to be looking at, when power costs are 80 to 85% of your cost, or your rates, it's not going to take long where you're going to have to do something. So I think this is a good middle ground.
And if I may just say one other point, in terms of the implementation date, we said we're hoping, and we hope that you will be reviewing and hopefully approving a rate reduction at the September 8th meeting. And then it will take us a few days, although we're doing a lot of legwork ahead of time, but we're going to have to change our rate schedule, update the billing system. But when we say effective date, September 15th, when the meter readers start reading, we always read for the consumption that has already taken place. So customers will see the rate reduction anywhere from, it depends on where they fall in the billing cycle, but pretty much the end of August, customers' consumptions will be charged at this lower rate. So and then that bill that is read from the end of August through September 10th that bill will be, I'm sorry, September, that bill will go out in October. The October 10th bill will reflect the consumption that took place in late August through September, and they will hopefully see the reduction then. So, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And we're one of the few commodities that you pay for after you consume it, which we'd like to change that sometimes.
Need prepaid
Because
meters.
sometimes you
Prepaid.
don't get paid for that.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
We've got one more item in utilities. North Carolina Department of Aviation has an airport safety maintenance program which they provide to public airports in the state of North Carolina. This year, they're asking us, or giving us the opportunity, I should say, to provide them a notarized letter of commitment by August the 31st, which will put us on a 5-year program of maintenance with this organization. It's a 5-year program. The cost, if we ask them to do particular maintenance, we will have to pay for that, but it would probably be at a better rate than we would be receiving from a contractor outside. And in many cases, they come forward and take care of maintenance problems and situations. For example, right now, we need approximately 70 taxiway lights, which they've agreed to replace. They'll do that for us, for an example. What this requires is us to do a letter of commitment and submit it to the North Carolina Department of Aviation Division of Department of Transportation. I would recommend that we definitely do that.
And that's
So
Jimmy.
that should go forward. Will we have time to, will that be able to, will we be able to submit that letter on that date,
Yes.
prior to that date?
Not, well, we have to wait until you formally approve it, but we'll have it ready to send
That's
off.
what I mean, yeah.
Yes.
That's it, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the administrative committee, and that is chaired by Councilman Dixon, is that right?
Councilman Biggs.
Biggs.
Councilman
Oh,
Biggs.
Steve, I'm sorry.
Not a problem. I mean, he can have it if he wants. Well, as it says on the agenda, we're here to review the proposals for purchase and redevelopment of the Northeast Commission building, as some of us know it. I think before we actually get in too deep in this, Anne Marie, can you give us, maybe update us on the comments that were received from the County Tourism Development Authority, and maybe at the same time update us on where we're going with the economic impact study?
Be happy to. The Tourism Development Authority has been supportive of the council's initiative to look at alternative to repurposing this building. Early on, when the council last winter talked about having the building appraised, finding out what the value is, and then soliciting proposals, the TDA went on record and came before you and commended you for doing that and asked that you look at uses that would create commerce and vitality, enhance the waterfront, and enhance the downtown. And at our meeting, at the TDA board meeting last week, I was asked to give an update, which I periodically do, to that board on where the council is in this process. And I reported on where the council was in having interviews and meetings with the developers, and then the members of the committee gave feedback and comments and wanted to share that with the council. I thought it was very thoughtful comments. The TDA acknowledged that the council has a difficult decision before them, but again, they are very much appreciative of you doing this. They think this is healthy and it's important, but they expressed appreciation for the way that you're considering the reuse of the building. A couple members, one member expressed concern about a manufacturing process, a brewery process taking place on the waterfront, and said that the building should be used in the highest and best use. And could the town not find another location for that type of use? And that the restaurant proposal could fill a need to help attract more meetings and conferences to the town. Other members expressed support for the brewery. Several of the accommodation representatives that sit on the board said they frequently hear complaints from their guests about the town closing down at 8:30 or 9 o'clock. They also, someone said they thought that a brewery would attract a younger demographic and help diversify our aging community. At least two members thought that a restaurant in that particular building was not necessarily a priority now, especially since the hotel has been purchased and hopefully will be redeveloped with a restaurant and a conference facility. Several members suggested that the council consider a long-term lease instead of an outright sale of the building. That the building is too valuable to sell, and I dare say after those comments were made, I think there was general consensus that from everybody that was something that you all should consider. And there was also a suggestion that covenants be considered on the property, and that's something that you all have talked about, but particularly concerned if you were to sell or lease the building, that you would restrict conversion of the building to residential use, that it should be some commercial use. And there was consensus on this point that the TDA wants commerce on the waterfront, but recognizes the challenging decisions that the council will be making, and that a change in that building will likely change the waterfront. And that I thought this was a great comment, that we want commerce, but we don't want to look touristy down there. We want vitality, but we don't want to risk losing sort of and the word authenticity was used about what makes our waterfront special. But everybody agreed again that you have a really tough decision to make. And the chairman of the board, County Commissioner Keith Nixon, suggested that Nancy Nichols, our tourism director, share with you the results of the recent visitor survey that was administered, and then also the survey that was administered locally to get feedback from residents about what they do when they have friends and family visiting. So that was shared with the council, but we thought it was important to reiterate all that this evening. And to update everybody on the economic impact analysis, at your committee meeting last July, you asked that staff work on an economic impact analysis to measure the fiscal impacts of the two projects. And I've reported to the council previously that we've been working off of a really great bulletin that the UNC School of Government published on helping local officials evaluate models for economic impact. There are a couple models out there that have been developed. One was developed by a consulting firm, interestingly enough, in Austin, Texas, where one of the developers who has a proposal before the council is from. They have a dashboard model. It was great. It's very expensive. I tried to get the Northeast or the East Commission and Department of Commerce to look at buying it and so that we could all use it, but nobody has any funds for that. I did reach out to Electricities to see if they had any relationship with an entity that had a model, and one of the models that was evaluated by the School of Government was developed by somebody, a consulting firm in Missouri, and luckily East Carolina University has a license for that model, and Electricities is going to use our two projects to test the model. And so we've been giving Electricities the data. They've been emailing me questions about specifics regarding the two proposals. We hope to have that report, those reports, hopefully by sometime next week. With school coming back and the kids enrolling and getting going, they were not able to work on it last week. But that's where we are on the economic impact analysis, and we know that that's going to be one piece of the data that you're going to use to evaluate these projects.
Yeah, I think just for the general public to know, this isn't going to be something a decision that's going to be made tonight, next week, next month. I mean, it's going to be a while to make sure we do this right, whatever we do. I have probably had more phone calls and more stops in the grocery store or down the street or wherever on this one issue than any issue in quite a while. We know it's important. We want you to know that we know it's important. It is our waterfront, and we don't want to do anything that's going to mess it up. On my committee is Councilwoman Simpson and Councilman Bond, but I am going to open it up to all of the council members tonight, so we can get this thing rolling one way or the other. Some of the discussions that I have had with some of y'all is the same thing that came through the TDA, was maybe right now is not the best time to sell this building. Maybe now is a good time to think about a long-term lease. If we do a long-term lease, who knows, we might find some other proposals out there versus the two that we've got. I don't know if you want to back that far and punt or not, but it might be worth looking at. Something that popped in my mind could be dangerous, I guess, at times, but are we selling the right building? If it's people that want to do a restaurant, I don't think you can get a better view than this right here. So are we selling the right building? Do we need to move everybody that's in this building to that building? Just a thought. Anyhow, I'm going to open it up, let everybody kind of discuss it, see where you want to go with this. And then we'll follow up with some other things that we're going to have to do as far as house cleaning on this.
I got a couple things.
Yes, sir.
The first thing I realized through this is how important sailing is. And so, personally, I don't think we ought to do anything unless we promote and grow the sailing program, which I think can be an economic, it can be an economic positive for us. I've watched as I've taken my children to these regattas, and I mean, they have 300 and 400 boats. It's like the bicycles coming in here. I mean, I think that's one thing. I went and walked around with Kermit today and just sort of tried to get a feel for it. And I think whatever we do, we need to include sailing and try to grow that program, not keep it like it is, but make it better. And so then I do a lot of tax credit projects, so I kind of got an inside track on some of this stuff. So in order to do a lease, it has to be a 39 years and 1 month. If you want to do, you want to lease something that they can get a historic tax credit on. 39 years, it has to be greater than 39 years. So that's the outside, it's a long time. I mean, I don't think a lot of us are going to be alive. So if we want to do a lease that includes a tax credit, that's how long it's got to be. One of the proposals has both the state and the federal tax credit in here. And I just want to right now thank Bob Steinberg, because I'm on the North Carolina Historical Commission, and we got an email the other day to call our representatives, and then I got a call to call my representative, and so then they said, oh, you're in Bob's district, you don't need to call him, he's been strong on this. So, it'd be wonderful to think that we could have both those. I don't know whether that's an announcement, but, it'd be great to do that. But, the other thing is, one of the proposals has renovations actually to the outside, I think. And, I don't know of a single, and I called the State Historic Preservation Office, and they couldn't come up with one rural property where the roof had ever been raised and you get tax credit. So, that's another thing. I think the building, if the developer's doing credits, is going to have to stay like it is, at least in shape and form. They gave the hotel a fit over even trying to have that small little area on the rooftop of the hotel. They had to shrink it and, so you couldn't see it. So I think that's something I'd ask Anne Marie to sort of reach out and find out, if the proposals are for that. And then I know there's an engineering proposal that says you can't really go up. So I just think we need to be all aware of those things. And then we can make an informed decision. So they're my points.
Steve, first of all, I want to thank you for opening it up to all of us so that we can all join in this conversation. And I agree with Sandra 100% in that we don't need to do away with the sailing program. I think we need to expand that if we do anything. And because anything that we can get the youth involved in and get it in, or rather get the youth involved, I think it's a great thing. I didn't realize that to get the tax credit, you had to have a 39-year lease, because I was thinking about it and talked about it quite a bit over the weekend. I've gotten several calls on this thing also, that maybe we don't need to look at selling it, but maybe look into a long-term lease or something of that nature. But, and I think everybody needs to know and understand, we're not taking this thing lightly. We're going to examine all aspects of it. And as Steve said, this is all of us. This belongs to all of us. And we want to do what is best for all of us. So we want to do what's best for the community. And you can bet your life, we're going to look at all aspects. It's not going to be a short-term decision-making process. So we're going to do what's best, what we feel like is best for the community after listening to all the prospects and all the avenues and areas that we can go into. So.
Let me add one thing since the sailing has come up, and I see Kermit here tonight. And Sambo, you mentioned earlier about, really building on the sailing. I'm a board member of Sail NC, and if you want to see something just astronomical, sailnc.org, go on and watch the 3 recent regattas that they've had. And I know just about as much about sailing as that bottle of water does. But they were looking for somebody, and I wanted to represent this area. So everything so far has been at the airport in Manio. Well, they had 200 and some odd boats at their last regatta. And people, it was at the airport, people were flying in from all over the country, actually all over the world. They had 6 continents, I think, that was represented. So, will we ever grow it that big? I don't know, but I think we can at some point in time. So I like you two so far, do agree that, the TDA was a sponsor or has paid money to be on the website to show off Edenton. Scotch Hall thought it was important enough that they paid their money to be on the website, and it has been an outstanding event for the last 2 years, and they're just growing it by leaps and bounds. So, yeah, we were out on the boat yesterday afternoon. My son saw somebody on a sunfish, and he was like, I need to buy one of those and get back into it. And it was thanks to these guys and ladies that are sitting here tonight that he learned how to sail. Sure didn't learn it from his old man, but he learned and he certainly enjoyed it, as a lot of other kids have growing up here. Bob, Elton,
Well,
any of y'all?
Yeah, a few things I'd like to toss out concerning it. It seems that if we're going to have a discussion about it, it's going to be hard not to have a discussion about specifics. And so I'd like to do that. And I'd like to make another couple of points very quickly. I've been in touch with the developer from Texas concerning the sailing program, and he's shown a high degree of interest in being supportive, working with it, doing whatever it takes to do it. And he's very much in favor of whatever goes in that building, and hopefully he's, of course, wanting to do that himself. But his high degree of interest actually are two things. One is interest in historic repurposing and redevelopment. And he's very interested in having a high degree, too, of activity on the water related to the building. So he's very tuned to the sailing program. I've mentioned that to a couple of the people that have spoken to me concerning that, and informed them of his interest. And in keeping with all of that, I'd like to review just a few points about the restaurant aspect, that specific. The plan that this individual has presented to the town would give people who visited that restaurant a very high degree, a great view of the Albemarle Sound, Pembroke Creek, cypress trees that we've got out there, our waterfront, the historic lighthouse, Barker House. We do things that would make dining in such an environment a real experience. It would show visitors Edenton in all of its glory. It would give it an opportunity to really shine. In my mind, it's a foregone fact that a combination restaurant and retail, which he's recommended, makes the best investment for our town's future. I think it's the highest and best use possible for that building. I think it's best for our residents. I think it's best, and it's been expressed by them. We did have a residents survey recently. There were 3 open-ended questions on those surveys. The first one said, what is the most important thing that you like to see when you come to visit Edenton, or when you bring people here? Answer that dominated was the waterfront, the bay, the wharf, the lighthouse, its historic buildings, eating and restaurants in the downtown section. All those things which are assets that we are working with here. Second survey had a question, an open-ended question, which stated approximately, what would improve visitor experience? In other words, when you came here, what would have improved your experience in being in Edenton? And their answers that dominated the responses were more quality restaurants, being open on Sunday, having things to do in the town, and waterfront dining was repeatedly referred to. And the last open-ended question was, what is one place you like to take guests? And 79% of the people that responded said that they like to take their guests out to dine. And they are, in over 100 responses, mentioned a requirement that you have a choice in restaurants, and that quality restaurants was important to our town. There were 3 mentions in all of the responses for a beer and pub. And one mentioned a brewery out of pretty close to 500 entries. I think it's best for visitors that come here. We constantly hear from visitors now, as you're probably aware, the Barker House Edenton Historical Commission has become the visitor center. We keep a pretty good record of people who come here and visit. Almost, well, obviously it would be. The Barker House is on the waterfront, so people are very interested in doing that. That's where they want to come. Visitations and tour trips on our trolley have increased tremendously. We've had more visitations in the last 12 to 24 months than we've ever experienced here. A lot of that has come about through the fine job that's been done in promoting the town, the promotional coverage that we've gotten from so many publications. It's also come from opening up, being more available to visitors, being a very welcome center and available to people, even though the historic sites, because of state ruling, had to close on certain days, Sundays and Mondays. I think it's best for the waterfront. It gives an opportunity for a much broader demographic profile. A nice restaurant there and a retail spot would be an attraction for all age levels, would be attractive for all people. Would be, the proposal runs from simple fare to quality dining. It adds something, I think, to the general attraction of it by having a choice there. There's also a retail establishment that would be in that. It would give people something to do, a place to visit when they come to the waterfront. There's no doubt that this restaurant and the quality of the restaurant, the size of the restaurant, the plan for the restoration or change of it will create more job opportunities both in the short and long term. As a point of fact, the brewery, as I understand it, would employ 4 to 6 people. The restaurant and the retail combination would employ 16 to 20 on a full-time basis, and pretty close to 50 people, including internships, which this organization normally uses, for low-income children or young men that are interested in carpenter, working in either in development or building trade. So there's more of an opportunity there. I think it's a nice restaurant is a much better opportunity, better for our kids. It's a wholesome environment, and it is not, which disturbs me, not promoting a brewery within 150 feet of a waterfront playground, which if you ever come over here on weekends, it's packed with children and families. This is a family waterfront. And I got to tell you, in keeping with that, I think it's best for safety, and I think it's best for the peacefulness of the waterfront. Craft beer is a great item. I'm certainly not opposed to beer. I think it's just a wonderful commodity, and I'm a fan of it. But on craft beer, I don't know if many of you are aware, but the average alcohol content of beer is 5.5 to 6%. alcohol content. Craft beer, under Governor Egan, several years back, passed a ruling, a law that said, pop the cap. That pop the cap gave craft beer the opportunity to go from 5.5 to an alcohol content of 15%. Wine is 12%. Your beer that you buy at the grocery store is 5.5%. That's a big hop. I couldn't resist that.
Just don't have to buy his book.
Yeah. So, my point being there, I don't know that that's a great idea for Edenton's waterfront, being that close to a children's playground. I think it's an immeasurable difference between the two, a $4 million investment on the part of the restaurant versus a $782,000 investment on the part of the brewery. And I think it would be the best environment for the sailing club, for the sailing group, for teaching sailing, would be a healthy and a good environment there for that. I see it as a series of best deals for our waterfront. The other big point to me, the group that restaurant would possibly bring is more likely to stay and invest in Edenton than the group that's going to come down and visit the brewery. Again, I have no objection to breweries, I have no objection to beer. But the demographics of the two are quite different. There's no question in my mind, but the people that would enjoy a brewery would enjoy a nice restaurant too, and I'm not insinuating that. I think that would be a fact. But I do believe that the best support for Edenton's Certified Retirement Community Initiative and also for tourism on a general basis, those things which would enhance Edenton as a major possible must-become destination to bring people here. It's a much broader opportunity for attraction. I think it would be the absolute perfect complement for the historic hotel restoration. And it would be most likely the type of people who would come to visit the restaurant and enjoy restaurant waterfront dining would be those people who would possibly buy second homes here or retire here. Over the last couple of years, over $350,000 has been spent on advertising about who Edenton is, about our history and what we are, and I guess the last one has been this one. And that's a great thing for our town. I think that the restaurant that's been proposed really fits into the category that we say that we're one of America's prettiest towns, that we're a historic town, we're a friendly town, I hear it all the time. We're a family-oriented town, we're a great place to visit, great place to live. And I think we should do those things which can do the most to augment and improve, add quickly to that. So I'm very much in favor of that restaurant.
I have a question. I thought I was going to be speaking.
That's
Please, yes.
no, it's not a public hearing, I'm sorry.
Council.
My turn.
Yes.
I'm like my counterparts. I've learned a lot about the yacht club this past week. I must plead ignorant. I didn't know that we had one. I don't do much selling and it don't work at all. But I would love to see the council and the members of the yacht club come up with a plan to keep it so that the young people in our area and the older people will continue to do what they love to do on the water. And that's, that's boating, kayaking, canoeing, or whatever it is they do. Councilor Quinn had answered my question. The question that I was going to ask is, between the two, how many regular jobs would be offered to the town of Edenton? That's a question that had been asked of me. Which one, either one, they said, but what's going to be the income impact on Edenton? Which one is going to give us the most jobs? But in his presentation, he's given me the answer already.
And I think we'll also see some answers to that in our economic development impact
I would hope
statement.
we would get that, and somehow we need to let these folks know what that economic development impact is. I don't know how we can do that short of having it in the newspaper.
Well, we could
But
put it on our web.
couldn't we do that?
Hearing where everybody.
Well, we're gonna have it, but
Yeah.
when people arrive, it would be good if
We
they
can-
knew.
We can put it on our website.
We can do that.
Yeah. The one thing that has me confused, I guess, and that's not hard to do sometimes, but how are you gonna spend $4 million on that building? Now, that's really got me confused. I mean, and the reason that I say that, I mean, I'm not doubting him to some degree, but I deal with people, hopefully on a daily basis, not every day, but that are doing industrial development, they're doing retail, they're doing whatever. And that's really got me worried about how you can spend $4 million on that building and stay there. I mean, he's been successful where he's been, but part of his proposal, if I've read it right, I don't mind going back and reading it again, is pretty much us giving him the building. That's number one. Then number two, him receiving the tax credits. Well, if he wants to do to the building what he says he wants to do to the building, according to Councilman Dixon, then he can't do that, and maybe he didn't know it. He can't do that and then get the tax credits, which is...
Let me address that.
Okay.
May I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's an interpretive situation. Councilman Dixon has interpreted that he's going to raise the roof. He has no intention of raising the roof. This individual has done repurposing and worked in historic buildings all over the United States. He left here and he went to Belleville, Illinois, to make a deal on a hotel that's 3 times the size of our hotel. And he's closed that deal, he's working on it. He's doing a program in Roanoke that covers 18 acres, an existing school system, that he's turning the school into a retirement center and giving the town the utility of the gymnasium and the auditorium for the town's use. And he's redoing the entire 18 acres to be a campus for that school system, which now will become a retirement center. He's done them all over. He's passionate about history. He's passionate about the historic restoration. He works with restorers. He works with people in the historic community. And he has a concept not raising the roof, changing the roof, that he has discussed with some of his consultants in that field, and they feel that they can do that. When we had our Skype meeting here with David Aldridge, Councilman Quinn, Quinn, I'm pointing at you and calling you Quinn. What a mess. Councilman Dixon asked Alred, is this development that you propose contingent on historic tax credits? And his answer was, tax credits and incentives always make a good deal better. But no, that is not a necessary part for us to do this development. You were sitting here, you heard him say that.
Can I say something?
Sure.
He's got state and federal in his proposal, which is sort of 758, 792 federal and state, which doesn't exist right now, of 758, 792. I just want to say, I think our job, at least this is what I look at, it's a very important building. I think our job is not to be an advocate for one project or another. I think our job is to gather the information and then make a decision. And I'm not going to sit up here and start advocating for one project or the other. I think this is not the time to do that. We have a ton more work to do before we decide what we're going to do. We don't know what we're going to do with the sailing. We don't know what we're going to do with things. It's a very important building. We don't even know whether we're going to sell it. And I think that it's just not the appropriate time. It's the appropriate time to gather information and then be a neutral decision maker, almost like a judge in a courtroom. Not to be out here advocating for one proposal over the other, because, I mean, they even got marketing costs in here. And, I mean, if they've already, if they know what their market is and getting ready to spend $4 million, well, then they ought not need a marketing survey. So anyway, I just think our job is to handle the people's property well and not advocate for one proposal or another. I think we need to study it like a business decision and make a decision after we get these economic impact statements back and after we get everything back. It's just not the appropriate time.
Not arguing with you at all, but I would like to point out that this, as I understood, was a discussion about the proposal.
Well, I mean, you're making the proposal.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, you just,
I'm
advocating for one person.
I'm advocating a proposal.
I just don't think it's the appropriate time.
Steve, man.
Let me defer to Councilwoman Simpson if she's got some, since we've all been around, and then we'll come back around.
I think enough has been said, and I'll agree on what Councilor Dixon and Councilor Stallings and have already said. I'll agree on that. I'm for it 100%.
Okay.
Well, $4 million, as Sambo said, is a lot of money. I mean, that's $439 a square foot. I cannot believe that Kermit spent that much on Waterman's, and I cannot believe that Larry spent that much on 309. That's $439 a square foot. Can anybody in Edenton afford to rent a building that they spent $439 a square foot on? I don't believe so. And we don't know exactly what Mr. Allred is going to do with that building. He talked about possibly putting a restaurant there. He talked about possibly putting some other type of sales in there. And I'm not advocating for either one. I want that understood up front. I'm not advocating for either one. I agree with what Sambo said. We need to examine all the facts, get all the facts in, get the impact statements, get everything, and then we'll decide what to do with it. We cannot decide at this point in time because we don't have all the ideas. We don't have all the suggestions. So I've said my 2 cents.
Well, and I did want to get out tonight if there were like specific questions or comments that relate to either one of the proposals, so everybody can hear them, number one, but so staff knows what they're working with also, or how we need to work this. So as far as the proposals and comments about that, let's let that rest for a while. One thing that we have got to decide, if we're going to sell it, number one, but number two, if we're going to lease it, either or the types of covenants that we want to put on the building, if there are any that we want to put on the building. I had asked Anne Marie to share the map with you that was asked of me of exactly what is the footprint of that building. And now that you have seen exactly what that footprint is,
Well, I think we know what the footprint is, but what we don't know is what can be done with the property around.
well, and that's exactly what I was going to get to. We have got to get our attorney to look at the property that's surrounding it. I mean, we've got 5 parking spaces over there, and that's it, that go with the building. It might not even be 5.
There's just too many unknowns at this time.
There is.
And I'd like to see us reach out to Preservation North Carolina. Claudia is here, and get, her idea of what we ought to have for covenants. I think that'd be a good idea. Reach out to the State Historic Preservation, the SHPO office, get their comments. I think all those things will be valuable in making a decision.
And I certainly think that is fine.
Yeah.
I really do. But I still think nobody's going to either buy or lease that building until we know what we're going to do with the property that's surrounding.
I agree with that.
And we got people who invested a lot of money real close to that piece of property. And there's a lot of houses real close to that piece of property that, I don't want to see something go there that's going to affect them either.
I agree with that.
In a bad way. If there's something that goes there that's good for them, good for it. So I think that this committee should be asking the staff, this is, again, one man's opinion, to make sure that, we have our attorney look that over. We've already talked about the sailing and, the kayaks and the paddle boards and all that, but we've got to consider we really have got to consider what we're going to do.
Well, we have to be prepared to inform the public all of the aspects that you're talking about before they can understand the total of it.
Oh, I'll agree. No, as we said in the opening, we've got a lot of work to do before we can even have this public hearing.
I don't see how we can have it based on everything we're talking about now.
I'm not planning on having it in September.
That's what was said.
Okay, well,
That was.
the committee, I'm hoping, will not agree to that, the administrative committee, to have it in September, because we won't have it.
Yeah, I don't think
We won't have any of it together by then. There's an actual picture of exactly what the footprint is of that building. So you think about if a restaurant wanted to go there, right where she just had the pointer coming down I guess would be the north end of that, yeah. There is nowhere that you can drive a truck back there to even, there's not, to the kitchen, if you want to deliver stuff to the kitchen that they were talking about using, if that was a kitchen in fact. There's just way too many unknowns.
Not unless Steve's gonna let him use his driveway.
I can almost promise you that ain't gonna happen. So, yeah, I just think we've got to get Hood involved in this and find out what we can do with it. And I think we need to decide, the committee needs to decide and send to the council at some point in time, after all this is done, after we get the economic impact statement back, after we find that from our attorney, everything, we can then decide when we want to move forward with the steps and the timeline that we want to move forward with. It took us a while to get moving on the police department, and this is going to take a little while
I agree
too.
with you, Steve.
Thank you for coming, Ms. Steinberg.
We need to.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We need to be specific about what we expect to accomplish in this period of time.
I'll agree 100%. but I don't want to get too specific until we get some of the questions we've already got.
I'm talking about answering the questions,
Yeah.
is what I'm talking about.
That's right. So if we get the economic impact statement back, and if it's voted on by the full board, at the board meeting, to have HUD go ahead and get started,
We've already done that.
well, you can't take a vote tonight. We've said
It was my understanding that we had made that decision to have the economic study done.
No, that's being done, yes. I was talking about having HUD look at what can and can't be done with the other properties.
Yeah, well, we've asked for that too.
And I think we need some business model, how they think this thing's gonna work on both sides. Because, I mean, you know, one of these is just a request for, I mean, they wanna get it, fix it, but there's no business proposal,
Oh, yeah.
who's gonna run it and all. I mean, I think we have to have an idea that it's not gonna be vacant space, because we've had a lot of restaurant space has been vacant in this town.
Well,
And, you know, there's still a lot of retail spaces vacant. And we need to make sure whoever takes that building has a plan to use it, and what that plan is.
and once you sell that building,
It's hard to get it back.
it's hard to get it back, and a good attorney can do away with some of that, that we're gonna add to it. But, and again, that's why I'm already kind of sort of thinking we need a lease on this instead of
There are a lot of people that
long-term
worked really hard a long time ago to make sure this waterfront was open to the public.
Absolutely,
You know, I think we need to protect that.
absolutely. Do you want the proposals also put on the webpage? So everybody can review them?
I think they,
Okay.
Yeah, I
All right.
think this needs to be totally see-through.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we've had them out there. Okay. I think we're done. Thank you, sir.
All right, thanks, Steve. Next on the agenda is Public Works Committee, and I'm the chairman of that. Anne Marie, do you want to take over for that, or?
Be happy to. The first item on the committee agenda is the issue of no left turn to park, the signs, and enforcement. And I guess I was just really frustrated on Friday afternoon when we were working on the agenda. I had been receiving calls and emails. I went to the county, one of the county offices, and they were asking, why do you have those signs? They don't do anything. They're ridiculous. They're ugly. I said, well, tell me what do you recommend that we do? What can we do better? What can we do to help educate our visitors, but also the newcomers that come here and live here as to what the rules of the road are, what the etiquette is. Downtown Edenton is not a mall where you can just turn left and grab the closest parking. So we need a plan. I don't know what it is, but I wanted you all to know that we're hearing a lot of chatter, a lot of frustration, and we would like to engage the public. Maybe we can do some Q&A on Facebook and Twitter and try to get some ideas, but certainly we can come up with a plan. I think we need to move on from the signs and look at some other type of public relation campaign and enlist citizens. It's almost like the chiefs and the police department. If you see something, say something. If you see somebody turning left into a parking spot, go up to them, knock on the window and say, hello, welcome. But we don't do that here. We don't drive that way. You're supposed to go down around the monument and then come up and look for a spot. So I'm sorry, I'm on my soapbox, but it was rough last week. Everywhere I went, people were complaining about those signs and asking what we're trying to accomplish. We tried to have a volunteer downtown to do enforcement, because enforcement is effective. But the merchants were upset about that. They thought we were being heavy-handed. So we need some help. Think about it. We'll try to come up with some ideas. Because I know, and I tell everybody, it is something that the council cares about. It's a tradition, it's a local tradition, it's the rule of the road, and we need to figure out a way to make sure that everybody knows what the expectations are.
Great, thank you. And then,
I'm not on your committee, but can I add one
Yes,
thing to
you
that? Because I got tired of seeing people, as Anne Marie said, make the left turn. and it wasn't I was tired of seeing the people, it was I was tired of seeing action that's almost happened. And, you know, there's been a couple of just little bumps or whatever, and I'm sure, you know, we hadn't had anything major. It really bothers me, though, that, and we've got to come up with something, because, you know, kids darting in and out.
Somebody's gonna get hurt.
They are, and I hate to even say that, knock on wood that they don't, but one of these days, it's gonna happen. And, I think any way that we can stop it, I don't care if the signs are ugly. You know, and it's pretty evident that they don't work 100% of the time. But I will tell you, be careful when you approach somebody from out of town and tell them, because they will quickly tell you to mind your own business. I have had that happen a couple of times. And we've got locals that I have spoke to a couple of times that do it often. I mean, almost hit the sign to make the turn. And I have spoken, again, I was told to mind my own business, so I'm getting tired of folks telling me to mind my own business, but we got to do something, because, I mean, it has slowed down some. It's bound to have slowed some people down from doing it.
I actually saw someone last week back out of the parking space, back around and go the opposite direction.
Oh, yeah,
I've seen that many times.
Or how about people that back into the parking space?
Yeah.
I've seen that recently.
And I'm thinking,
That's a new
Well, I think we ought to go back to Chief's horse proposal. I think I would love to have a couple of horses down there, and people on parole. I think people would, if you had a couple of mounted folks, all the cities are using them, and I think it'd be great for tourism, and also it'd give them a, you know, 'cause you said you wanted to do it.
But that was your proposal, Sam.
Yeah.
Who's gonna clean up?
Well, they have bags, will they?
The fire chief and the police chief ride around on horses.
I've got the Rio, I'm good.
Okay.
The next and last item is a request for two no parking zones, two no parking spaces on Oakdale Drive. This request came about at a recent Neighborhood Watch meeting, and you do allow for no parking zones to be designated so that someone can back out of their driveway and get out without fear of backing into a car that is parked in the street. So the proposal is to install two no parking zones in the specific areas that were delineated on the map on Oakdale Drive.
I recommend we take that to full council. And that completes our agenda, and meetings are. Thank you.